Okay, hello, Better Man Podcast friends. It is a Monday. It is a Tampa Bay Lightning Monday. Yeah, we'll just keep it going. They got another game tonight, but whew, man. Okay, so enough about that. On this Monday, what we know is Mondays are one of the best days for a man to get better. And if you're watching this because you made the smartest decision a man could make. You wanted to get better. I'm going to share with you something to help you as a man if you are ever in a marriage, if you ever want to be married, if you're married now. Share with you something that I think could potentially help you, and I hope it will be beneficial to you. Now, I do understand that sometimes, we have to deal with the fact that, as people on this podcast, you've lost a marriage. It didn't go the way that you thought. Some mistakes were made, and that's okay. That doesn't mean we waller in it. That doesn't mean we, don't want to get better. Again, that's why we do this podcast, so that if there's a next time that God blesses you with, you have a better opportunity that next time. And don't forget this. What I'm about to share with you is stuff that a lot of times fathers don't share, especially for the last couple generations. You need a father who's into the things of God and has a healthy marriage, and he teaches the boy healthy marriage. So let's not forget that. If you didn't get this stuff, it's okay. But again, you don't just sit there. You make an effort to learn these things. And that's what I want to help you with today. And I want to just real quick actually give you 3 things that you need to be ready for if you are ever going to be in a marriage. And so I wrote a few of these down. And here's the first thing I wrote down is, you have to decide when you get married if you want to follow culture or you want to follow God. Follow culture or follow God. And when you enter the marriage, many times we're making vows before God. Many times we do that, and then we as versus say a courthouse, or whatever, but, a lot of times, there was something about God involved in the vows. And when you make those vows, it is a big deal, but we forget that this is a walk with God because God made marriage. And as we enter into that, it's real easy to lose sight of it. We are in a culture today where people will tell you, live the way that you want. It's ever changing, people doing whatever it is they want, however they want. It is very easy to drop into a culture mentality when it comes to marriage. But God didn't design the steady flow of marriage for people to sink into what culture wanted. And we live in a culture that is pushing new ways to think about marriage, materialism, maybe open marriage, sexual things that, going outside the bounds of marriage and still being married. We live in a culture today that says it's okay to just leave your wife at home while you go party. It's okay for you to, just ditch her or not care. And so we have to make a decision to say, no. Culture is not going to win the day here. This requires a manly man to step up. It is so easy to just roll with culture. Because culture changes all the time, that makes it difficult, but it's easy for the man because he can just kind of shift. And men like to shift in our culture today rather than stay firm on the things of God. And so I want to challenge you to take the road less traveled, to take the more difficult path, which is to operate in a marriage that has firm foundation, that is not shifting in the sands of culture. And we see people faced with difficult moments already in marriage, and then they compound it by not being firm in the things of God. And so I think that's just the first thing I wanted to share with you. And the Bible is clear. Hey, look, we as Christians, as Christian men, as Christians, we don't follow the things of the world. We follow the things of God. God is clear about this idea that he had for marriage and the important things that he wanted to draw our attention to, keep us focused. The next thing I wanted to share with you is that a lot of marriages today are not built to withstand crisis. You're going to have a crisis in your marriage at times. Sometimes, in life, there's there's job changes, city changes, moments where maybe somebody was unfaithful, maybe there's a financial situation, somebody lost their job, there's a loss of income for a long period of time, there's some overwhelming bills to pay because the economy crashed. I've encountered some of that for sure back about 15, 16 years ago. You might lose a loved one, lose a child, lose a baby in the womb, a friend, of the family member that was close to a husband or wife. There's so many ways crisis could hit you. And I've watched as a crisis will shake a marriage. Somebody can't recover. Somebody goes into a funk. Somebody goes into a deep depression. Somebody turns to alcohol, drugs, just buries their head in their phone or online, and they cannot recover. And I think you have to be ready for a crisis before it happens. And one of the things when a crisis happens is that, you're going through something, you can learn from it. You can be ready before it happens, and there's only one way to be ready before it happens, and that is to prepare your heart with God and strengthening, once again, a foundation. But we recognize that if I'm going through something, God will have a plan. At least what I mean is he'll reveal how the crisis you're going through can strengthen your marriage, so you have to be open to that. He can, though something bad has happened, and God wouldn't want that for your life, he can, as he guides you, help you learn and apply it to strengthening your marriage. You can recognize that he is there with you in the middle of a crisis. You can understand that despite the fact that there's brokenness going on around you, that he is still protecting you in your marriage, and this can leave you in a much better place. When I think about the financial crisis going back to 2006, my wife and I, we had this investment home. We were going to make money off of it, and everything crashed. We could hardly pay the mortgage in our own home that we were in, much less a rental home. Plus, I had started the church and had just very little income, no health insurance. I mean, it was just a wild several years. And I think I shared this one other time on the podcast, but we sat down, my wife and I, and we said, we're not going to let these external things affect our marriage. We're going to rely on God's presence. We're going to learn from our mistakes. We're going to roll with his plan for our lives, and we're not going to be deterred. But this is not common any longer. Again, when crises come, a lot of times funk hits. And so you got to, as a man, be ready when those moments come. And then ultimately, we must, I think this is one of the other reasons why a marriage might struggle, is we end up having a time where I think probably change is happening just within the marriage. What was once a thing at the onset of the marriage becomes maybe a little bit different. And of course, we grow older. There's things related to that. Babies happen. There's things related to our bodies physically, a woman's body. When things like that, changes happen. Your body could get a little off or silly as well. And many times, if couples aren't ready for those changes. And so I think one of the foundational ways to understand, maybe you married and he was or she was doing well financially. You guys made really good money when you got married, and then 5 years in, you're having babies, and she's staying at home, and that income is lost. And that's a change. Like, are you ready for that change? Are you ready if there's a health issue? Are you ready for the change if there's some sort of thing happening within the home with your kids in general, and how they're affecting things inside the home? Maybe one of them's very rebellious. Maybe you're having discipline problems. And can you handle some of these changes inside the home? Can you handle the changes in each other? He might get a little bit, you as a man, you might kind of get your personality out of joint at times, or your things may develop. You got to figure out how to handle that change. But when change comes inside a household, you've got to be ready for it. And let me just tell you how you can always be ready when change comes inside a household, inside your marriage. Be content with what you have. Okay? Be willing to be flexible. You're in a covenant, so you got to be flexible. You're in this deeply woven covenant, and so there's got to be this flexibility within the covenant to understand, not flexibility to culture, flexibility to the fact that we're humans, and there's changes sometimes that happen inside of a physical body, in a life, in a home, and then just deep faith. That's how you're ready for changes. So I pray that you will be building a firm foundation as a man. A father sometimes doesn't tell you, hey, be ready. Be ready. Culture's coming at you. Let me tell you why you don't bend the knee to culture. Maybe your father didn't tell you that, hey, crisis happens. And there's going to be a moment of deep crisis. You've got to be ready for that. And here's how you handle that. Son, I need to tell you that there's changes in you and her over a period of 5, 10, 20, 30, 50 years. Here's what those changes look like, and here's how you handle those, and ultimately a foundation with God makes the difference. And so I am sharing this with you, hopefully to help you as a man, things that I've learned, and hopefully you will be better as well. Let me pray for you. God, help us as men to see the value of a marriage, but also to understand how things can come against it. Things can be difficult, and that we don't bail out, but we dig in. And ultimately, we dig into you, God. And so help us to see that. Help us to honor our covenant of marriage. Help us to understand the value of it for our life. And so I pray this in Jesus' name. Amen. Thanks for joining me on a Monday. I'll be back with you on Wednesday.